Hey guys, Jay VanGorden, Volkswagen Catalog Manager here at SP Euro, and welcome to the Volkswagen Mk6 Jetta GLI Buyer's Guide. Before we get started, all the information covered in this video can also be found on our Mk6 Jetta GLI Owner's Hub. Whether you're looking for common problems, fixes, DIYs, technical specifications, or any other general information, be sure to check out our Owner's Hub, which we'll link below. For those who may not know, the Mk6 signifies the sixth generation of the Volkswagen Jetta. The Mk6 spanned from the years 2011 through 2018, however the GLI was introduced in 2012 and was produced all the way through 2018. Since its inception in 1984 with the Mark I, the Jetta GLI has always been made as a sedan alternative to the notorious and beloved GTI, or back then as it was called, the Rabbit GTI. The GLI was aimed for those customers with families, more cargo, and people looking for a four-door alternative. The GLI boasted seating for 5, a spacious trunk, and had all the same sporty characteristics and features of the GTI, to include a fuel-injected 1.8-liter, 90-horsepower engine, sport suspension, and a 5-speed manual transmission. The GTI stands for Grand Touring Injection, which naturally led to the GLI, which stands for Grand Luxury Injection, and throughout the decades has always been referred to as a GTI with a trunk. It was at the end of the Mark V era when VW was looking to produce the next generation, the Mk6 Jetta, to be both bigger and less expensive to produce in order to compete with its competitors, the Toyota Corolla, the Nissan Sentra, and the Honda Civic. Volkswagen needed a car that would be priced lower in order to achieve their goal of selling 800,000 units by 2018. The GLI is literally the best bang for your buck when it comes to a European performance compact sedan. Now compared to the base model Jetta, the GLI features a powerful 2-liter turbocharged TSI engine, a close ratio 6-speed manual or DSG dual clutch transmission, sport suspension, upgraded larger brakes and bigger wheels and tires, more aggressive styling, and interior with higher quality materials, sport seats, sport pedals, and red stitch accents. Driving the car delivers a rewarding driving experience while doubling as a commuter car with great MPGs and serving as a family hauler when needed. Now, given that there's such a long production span, in terms of pricing, there's a good news and there's bad news. The good news is that you can find the earlier years for roughly $6,000 to $10,000 and the more current years for about $17,000 to $20,000. The bad news is that these cars depreciate in value really fast. This is great news for the enthusiasts, however, because you can scoop up an inexpensive, relatively modern car at a great price that's capable of achieving nearly 300 horsepower with simple bolt-ons and performance software. The Mk6 GLI is based on the PQ35 platform, which is shared with various other models. Unlike the GTI, which serves as its own model, the GLI was actually considered to be a submodel of the Jetta, which comes with various trims, engines, configurations across the Mk6 platform. The GLI is, however, available in many different trim levels. From 2012 to 14, the following trims were available: the base model GLI, the Autobahn, and the Autobahn with Nav, and there was also a special edition 30 to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the GLI. The base model GLI came with standard sporty bumpers, headlights, honeycomb grille up front, but it lacked a sunroof. The interior came standard with cloth seats, but still featured the red accent stitching found on the bottom of the steering wheel, the leather shifter, the seats, the brake lever, and the armrest. From there came the next level up, which was the Autobahn edition, which added 18-inch wheels, a sunroof, dual-zone climate control, heated leatherette seats, and Fender audio. In addition to the Autobahn trim was the Autobahn with navigation package, which obviously added navigation. In addition to navigation, it added keyless entry or KESI, a push-button start, and a backup camera. Last came the Edition 30, which added red trim across the front of the grille and a trunk lid mounted spoiler, Edition 30 badges on the front fenders, 18-inch Laguna alloy wheels, carbon look interior trim inlays, Edition 30 kick plates, LED daytime running lights, and bi-xenon headlights with VW's adaptive front lighting system, or AFS for short. It's also a good thing to note that the 2012 model year did not come with a traction control off switch, something that was later changed in 2013 model year. Although the 2012s did not come with this button from the factory, there are some aftermarket options for you to add it in. All the wiring is already there. It's literally just buying a switch and tying it into the car. In 2015, the Mk6 Jetta as a whole received a facelift. On the front, the Jetta received a new front grille, new front bumper, which was more aggressive and now turned down, giving it less of a smiley face look, and new LED lights. While this was the case for the standard Jetta, the GLI didn't get a new front bumper and grille until the 2016 model year, which changed to a very sporty, wide look and incorporating horizontal fog lights versus the previous vertical design. The side profile looks more squared off with sharper creases, and the rear bumper reflectors curve up instead of down, which made the rear of the car look very similar to the Audi B8 A4. New features included a new trunk lid and spoiler lip edge, larger license plate cutout between the taillights, more creased and squared off bumpers with a diffuser, and a taillight modifications to include reflector changes like the larger reverse lights and LEDs. The 2015 through 16 models came in 2 available trim levels depending on options, which were the SE or the SEL packages, while the 17 and 18 model years came only in 1 available trim, albeit the most complete GLI in terms of features to date. Now moving on to the engines. The power plant in terms of displacement remained the same throughout the years, which was the direct injected EA888 turbocharged 2-liter TSI engine. However, 2 different generations of engines were used. Model years 2012 to 13 used the Gen 1 engines, which were carried over from the Mk6 GLI, engine codes CCTA and CBFA, which produced 200 horsepower and 207 pound-feet of torque. The later half of the 13 model year moved over to the Gen 3 engines, engine codes CPLA and CPPA. These engines produce an extra 10 horsepower, bringing it to 210 horse and the same 207 pound-feet of torque. The Gen 3 engines, using the Mk6 GLI, were the first of its kind and did not offer variable valve lift technology like the Gen 3 engines eventually being offered on the Mk 7 models. A really quick way to tell whether you have the Gen 1 or Gen 3 engines is the Gen 1 engine is going to have a black and gray engine cover versus the Gen 3 will have an all black engine cover. Another real easy difference is the Gen 1 engine is going to have the oil filler cap a little bit more central in the engine cover or top of the engine versus the Gen 3 engine. The oil filler cap is going to be located more in the back of the engine on the passenger side. These engines are rated for 24 miles per gallon city and 32 miles per gallon on the highway and were mounted to either the MQ350 02Q 6-speed manual or the DQ250 DSG dual clutch transmission. While the DSG is very popular among enthusiasts, it may lack the connectivity found when rolling through the gears manually with the MQ350 manual. You can expect clutch replacement and gear oil changes as part of the normal routine maintenance of a manual transmission throughout the course of time. However, the DSG also requires fluid and filter change every 40,000 miles, while we tend to recommend sooner at about 30,000 miles, especially if you track or modify the vehicle. Some of the other significant changes to the GLI versus the base model Jetta in terms of the chassis would be the suspension and braking systems. The most notable change in the suspension will be from the base Jetta's torsion beam rear suspension to the independent rear suspension found on the GLI. The independent rear suspension, paired with the sport dampers on all floors and factory lowering springs, which lower the car just over a ½ inch, is what allows the car to tackle the curves and totally enhance the driving experience. Now with all that power and suspension would naturally come the brake upgrade to seal the deal. The beautiful bright red powder-coated calipers in the GLI not only look fantastic, but they wrap around a larger set of rotors both front and rear. 2012 to 18 models came with 312mm vented rotors, which were bumped up from the base model Jetta 288mm front rotors. The earlier 12 and 13 models came with 272mm solid rear rotors, which eventually were downgraded to 253mm solid rear rotors for the remainder of the model year range. The 272 discs, while short-lived, were bumped up from the base model Jetta's 253mm, or in some cases, drum brakes. Now, if you are looking to buy one of these cars, there are a few things to look out for. Mostly have to do with the engines. Now, on the Gen 1 side and the Gen 3, there are some common similarities. However, the Gen 3, a lot of these issues span a little bit later in the range, or you may not see them typically at all. On the Gen 1s, the biggest issue is your timing chain tensioner. These are notoriously known to go bad. There was a problem with Volkswagen. They even extended the warranty to 100,000 miles. At this point in time, these cars are a little bit older, so a lot of these timing chain tensioners may have already been replaced. So you could do a couple things to make sure that it has been replaced or find out if you do need to replace it. Number one, the easiest thing is contact Volkswagen. See if they have any type of service history on the car. A lot of that stuff is going to be documented. The second thing, if you can't find any history, is to actually inspect the timing cover. So on the timing cover, there's a little access port. You get in there with a mirror after you take the little plug out, and you can inspect the tensioner to see if you have the updated design. Another thing to look out for is the intake manifold. So the earlier 12 and 13s on the Gen 1s, they had a lot of issues with the intake manifold for various reasons. You were getting a lot of carbon buildup on the actual flaps of the intake manifold. There was another sensor that sensed the position of the flaps. That sensor would go bad. And then you also had a plastic linkage on the side, which would also break and cause issues. The next thing would be the water pump, which is notoriously to leak in a few different spots. Could be from the back of the seals, commonly found from oil leaks leaking down onto the water pump itself. So that would cause a lot of the water pump seals to start to degrade and leak over time. On the other side, you also have where the water pump mates to the thermostat housing assembly. The water pump seal can also leak. And third, there's a little coupler that has some O-rings. Those can also leak as well. Not to mention that the entire thermostat assembly is made out of plastic, so with a lot of thermal expansion of heating and cooling, that can also crack and go bad as well. Next will be the PCV system. The PCV valve on these cars, they are also known to go bad. Biggest problem there is the vacuum diaphragm. It's a thin paper diaphragm that tends to rip, so a lot of times you'll get either positive crankcase ventilation coming from the bottom of your crankcase, and it'll push out a lot of seals, or you'll get like a very loud whirring noise coming from the PCV valve itself. A lot of times you're also going to get some trim codes, for an air leak or a very leaned out system. And lastly, one of the things that plagues all these engines is carbon buildup on the backs of the intake valves from the direct injection. So for those of you who may not be familiar with the direct injection, the fuel is squirted directly into the combustion chamber versus the older design, which is multi-port. Multi-port has the fuel injector mounted in the intake manifold. The air and the fuel is combined and sprays over the top of the valves. With that said, the direct injection doesn't do that any longer, so you get a lot of carbon buildup on the top of the valves. The Gen 3 engines come with an updated PCV valve. So with the new updated PCV system, instead of having to clean the tops of your intake valves every 40 to 50,000 miles, that service may be pushed off to 70,000 to 80,000 miles, in some cases even up to 100,000 miles. Another thing to look out for, just a pet peeve on the Mk6. So the GLI dashboard comes with a soft touch dash compared to the base model Jettas, which is all hard plastic, but the rest of the car also uses the hard plastic found in the base model. So you may also get some rattles, squeaks, that sort of thing, especially in colder weather. For more information on some of these problems, check out our diagnostic video, which we'll link below. All right, guys, that about wraps it up for the Mk6 Jetta GLI Buyer's Guide. Hope you guys all learned a lot. If you have any comments or anything you want to add, please comment in the box below. If you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you want to see more content like this, also subscribe. Thank you.